Welcome back to Just Vetting, the podcast where we go beyond the exam room to talk business, ownership, and leadership in the veterinary world. Today's guest is Dr. Cindy Trice. Cindy, great to see you again. How are you?
I am doing great, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm honored to have you on. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Got a lot to unpack. You have a lot of experience, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. Before we could, I wanted to talk mainly initially about your relief work. I know that's something that's really you hold dear. Tell me, about how you got started. I know everybody has a story about how to become a veterinarian. I'm really curious to tell our listeners why you became a veterinarian and how did you go down the path of focusing on relief work?
Yeah, so how I became a veterinarian was I was not one of those kids that knew they wanted to be a vet. We always had animals, so we had cats and dogs in our house growing up always. So we were an animal family, but I don't know, it just never occurred to me. So I actually got my undergrad degree in mass communications. I ended up working in corporate video production for several years, and then I was doing freelance on just production freelance, like movies, TVs, commercial, documentaries, like sampling.
Right.
And actually it's interesting because I had this like freelance lifestyle as a production person, and I do think it shaped my affinity for working that way, which then ended up...
The freelancing, right.
Yeah,
right.
Freelancing, exactly. And kind of what I always say is, being a professional sampler.
Yeah, yes, you do, right.
So I ended up deciding, I don't know, I just felt like, I didn't know where I was going with the production thing, and I ended up getting a job working at a pet hospital as a receptionist, and then that...
And you had to be in your early 20s at that time, right?
Yeah, it was in my mid-20s. And
I can't believe I did not know that. All the time you and I have spent together over the years, I could have sworn, you like everybody else, that there's a defining moment. I'm 4, I'm 7, and usually, mostly all of them, most of our are under 10 years old, all your colleagues, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's such a young age. I did not know that. I'm surprised. So go ahead. So you're in your mid-20s. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the sort of silly part of the story was that I was having this sort of mid-20s crisis where I just felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing with this production thing.
Right.
So I call my best girlfriend. I'm living in San Francisco at the time. I call my best girlfriend, and I'm complaining to her, and she's like, okay, Cindy, hang on. If you could do anything you wanted to do, don't think about whether it's possible or not. What would you do? And it was a great question because... And I remember distinctly my answer, although I don't remember what I meant by it. My answer was I would study the relationship between animals and people. And she said to me, fine, go get a job working with animals. It doesn't matter what it is. Just do it. And it was the best advice. It was just basically like, take a step in a direction that interests you, and it will unfold. And she could not have been more right. So basically, I looked in the want ads in the paper because that was how you did it. This was the mid-90s.
I remember those days, yes.
And I found a job at a pet hospital that was within biking distance from my apartment. And I went in and interviewed for a job as a receptionist. And the guy the vet looked at my resume, and he was like, why do you want to work at my pet hospital? Because my resume was all production stuff. And I said, because I want to be a vet, which at the time was a lie, like a spontaneous lie, so he would understand why I wanted the job. But I just really needed a job where I could make money and work with animals. And so I did that, and then it was working at his practice that I did decide I wanted to be a vet, but I had very, very successfully avoided all of the science classes in my undergraduate years. And so I spent 3.5 years working and going to school at night to get all the science classes so that I could apply to vet school. But so then I was living in California, so I went to UC Davis vet school from 2000 to 2004.
So when did you actually become a doctor then? Were you 30 yet, or you're almost 30 by the
I
time
was
you became
30. Yeah, I was 35.
35.
When I graduated
Wow.
vet school. Yeah.
Have you met any? So over over your travels, have you met anyone else, any other doctors like you who decided at that late in life to go to become a veterinarian?
Yes, and I was not the oldest person in my class. I was one of maybe 10. There were like 120 of us, and there were 10 to 15 of us that were, 30 or older. But I wasn't the oldest one. And since then, yeah, I actually have met more than you might think of veterinarians who had other careers before they went to vet school.
It's a great story because, myself, I have 3 daughters who are young adults, and my older one's a senior in college. I have a sophomore in college and a freshman. The pressure on the kids today of, you got to figure out what you got to do. You got to figure out what you got to do. I mean, your story is great because, your friend gave you great advice. You weren't sure. You had a passion. You thought you did. Go try and pursue it. Or what are you going to live a life of regrets? You never pursued it, and look at where you've come now. I mean, geez, that's just a great story. I love it.
It is, and I'm really glad that I had another career first. And I just know myself. I would not necessarily have been a good vet student or a good veterinarian if I had gone straight through. I wasn't ready for that. And that certainly may not be true for everyone, but I do realize it was true for me. And some of the skills that I learned in production work, whether that was especially like being a freelance production person, kind of the working with different teams, like having to come in, working with different teams. They were long, like production days are long days. It's not, that's not a 9-to-5 job.
It's not as glamorous as people think it is, right?
No.
Right.
And I wasn't in any kind of glamorous role at all. But it was fun. And we would come in and work as a team. And I think that kind of like communicating, that kind of coming in, working hard towards some kind of goal, really helped. Like some of those skills helped me in my veterinary days or my veterinary days, which are still now. But it's interesting, and I've been able to apply those skills to my vet life, and I feel like people, like you talked about, young people need to remember, like, oh my gosh, there are so many ways to live a life. There's so many ways to have a career. There's so many ways to be a vet. And you don't have to know. Like, you don't have to have a straight line trajectory of getting from point A to point B. And in fact, it is nice to have goals because that does help you take the steps to get to where you need to go. But if you can simultaneously have goals, but also have this looseness about you and have what I would call peripheral vision to look through open doors, you can end up with a really interesting career. And if you're too tunnel visioned on your goal, you may miss some really interesting opportunities that could land you in a place that is more suited to, or more aligned with, what your core values are.
Right. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, whether you go from high school, society's like, go to high school, right into college. My father used to say, he got his doctorate, and he used to say, I bet you not everybody's ready for it. We're immature, especially guys. You're immature. You'd be better off maybe going into the military for a year or 2 years, maturing a little bit, and then maybe going into college. And similarly, you come out of college, you're young. I mean, you don't know what you want to do. You're not sure, go out and work for a little bit. Go out into the real world as opposed to going right back into school. I know when I went to law school, I was in my mid-20s. I had worked for a while. I think you get an appreciation for being in school, too, because you're working. You know how it is. it's just different. So I get it. So then you come out of vet school. So then what happens next in terms of the career for you?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2004 and I did an internship at Florida Veterinary Specialists in Tampa, Florida, which is the first Blue Pearl. So I'm from Florida. I'm from Bradenton.
So you wanted to get back down here some way. You were thinking, let's go back down to Florida.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes and no. There were two reasons I did it. Well, I loved California. I feel much more at home out west than I do here. But I came home for two reasons. One, my mom, who was in her 70s at the time, had started having seizures. She did fine for many years. She passed at 93. But at the time, I was like, oh, I need to be closer to my mom. I also was long distance dating this guy who I knew from growing up. And so an internship was this nice finite period of time to go check in with Florida, check in with my mom, check in to see if I like this guy.
There was no FaceTime at that time either, so you're just chalking on the phone. That's right.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. I like
So I end up starting this internship in Tampa, and then just a few months in, I got diagnosed with cancer. And so then I had to drop out of the program, and then I spent time in treatment and recovery. And then when I was done with that, I ended up starting a job at actually it was my family's vet growing up. So I came home very comprehensively. I ended up moving back to my hometown, working for the vet I knew growing up, and dating a guy I knew growing up. And I was like, I was the person who, when I left my hometown, I was like, I am never coming back.
Yes.
I'm done.
Yes.
And it's not the first time in my life I've had to eat my words, but it's one of. So never say never, always avoid always.
Yes.
So I end up back there, and then I was working as an associate at a multi-doctor general practice, and then it really, really bugged me that I didn't finish the internship. So I went back. A year and a half later, I went back and I started the internship over, and I did that for a year. And then when I graduated from that, then that was when my life kind of took the turn to Relief.
Before we talk about Relief, it's funny, again, something else I didn't know about you. If it makes you feel any better. So I live in the town that I grew up in, and I married a woman who grew up in my town, whose mother taught me in 4th grade. And my wife and I were just talking about it this past weekend, how, like you, we both swore we are going to leave the nest and never come back to town. We live in town. We raised a family in town. We ate our words too. It happens, right?
It does happen.
I guess there's like no place like home for some of us. So it's good. That's funny. Oh boy. So then how did Relief come into the picture? So I mean that's a unique path.
Yeah, so I graduated from that internship, and then I had a choice to make. I could either go back to my old job, which it was a good, I actually still do Relief there. In fact, I'm working there this weekend.
Okay.
Great practice, but I knew I didn't want to get stuck in one way of doing things. So I really wanted to know what else was out there. And so I ended up talking to this traveling surgeon in our area. And I was telling her, I was like, I think I want to do Relief work. And she said, well, come with me. You can come with me on, just travel around, and I'll introduce you to practices. So I would occasionally meet up with her, and she's going to practices, and she would make, an in-person introduction. And then I just started handing out business cards and my resume, and it did not take long at all to get work. And I honestly thought of it as very temporary. I don't know if I was looking for like
a career.
Yeah, or like what kind of practice I would want to stay at.
Right.
I just wasn't sure. And I'm a little bit the kind of person, like I can be goal oriented, but I'm also what I alluded to before is I'm also very go with the flow, and I like a surprise, and I like things I like to see how things will unfold if I'm not too controlling over them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was how I was treating this sort of period of my career where I was hopping practice to practice. I didn't have any specific goal. I was just like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, whenever I listen to you speak, you use like a term of dating. In terms of you can go to different practice and depending if somebody's like you, they're not sure. And you can date, and you can see whether or not this practice works for me, or if you're thinking about maybe finding a home, you can
Yes.
you date a little bit to see if it works for you, or if you're not, you can just continue to move, and you have the flexibility. You've talked to me about some of the people you've worked with. You may place somebody out in Seattle, they go out there for 6 months. I mean, you really have the flexibility to go anywhere you want.
Yeah, and so that was a little bit of an evolution. I do think so. As far as the date before you marry thing, I do think in some ways it is surprising for jobs how short the interview process can be, at least in vet med. Like it really sometimes is just
1 hour.
Sometimes 1 hour, or sometimes like maybe one day, like working
Right, because
day.
you want to see their practice, maybe see what you're doing. Yeah, shadow. I get it. Yeah, that's a lot longer than lawyers. Lawyers is an hour, Cindy, maybe 2, and then
I know,
you're
and
going to
it's
make a decision.
It's crazy. And then we wonder
Right.
why, like, first of all, everyone's on their best behavior when they're wooing a candidate.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
yeah.
so, anyway, I always say, like, when I talk about this to, if I'm speaking, I always ask people, like, how many of you went on more than one date before you got married? And of course, everyone raises their hand.
Right.
Because we would never make that kind of commitment.
My wife only dated me, Cindy. Bite your tongue. Only one. She knew it. Come on.
You got to play the field.
Yeah, that's right.
So then I had this evolution, though, as a relief vet. I ended up, what you were talking about was my husband, who is a freelancer. He's a lawyer, but he's also a photographer. And we have no little people. And so we had a free lifestyle. We would throw the dogs in the car and we would go live in Montana, Washington, California, and Relief, or his photography work, would power those trips. And what I realized when I started doing that was I suddenly was like, oh, wait a second. I'm a business-to-business service provider. And I never thought of myself that way. But once I realized my job is to come in and support this practice and their business. Mm-hmm. It's more than just coming in and seeing the patients and leaving. I started to have this broader view of what my role was. And it really was to make sure, I did what I could to keep the team happy and productive, to make sure that the clients were bonded to the practice, not to me, but to the practice. Mm-hmm. That I started paying attention to, okay, what does this practice, have on their shelves? And, how can I align my medical recommendations, as long as they are aligned with what I think is appropriate medically, with their business and what, they sell, whether that's food or the, nutraceuticals or whatever they may be selling. And I just started thinking of it more holistically, and it made it honestly even more fun to do it that way. And that was when I realized, this can be a career. Like, being a relief vet doesn't have to be just this kind of
part-time gig or loosey goose, right?
Yeah, it can actually be a career choice. And once I decided that's what it was for me, it kind of changed everything. So
when you say changed everything, tell me about the next step. I mean, you're a successful entrepreneur, so you have a career. You're saying, okay, as a relief veterinarian, at what point did you say, hey, I can create my own company and I can build a company around it as well?
So some people, like vets that I had met, started reaching out to me, or they'd be like, oh, that's so cool that you do that. Like, how do you do that? And I would just answer their questions. I was always happy to talk to people about relief. And then I thought to myself, I just looked around, I was like, at the conferences, in all the veterinary, media that we have, nobody was talking about relief. Like,
Right.
it just wasn't a topic. And there was a general sentiment in the profession that either people didn't think about relief vets at all, or maybe they had kind of like a poor reputation, like, oh, relief vets are people who can't keep jobs or something
Really?
like that. Like, there wasn't,
Right.
and I was like, hang on a second. It actually takes a very specific skill set in order to come in and take care of someone else's business and do it well. Now, it's certainly, possible, actually probable, that not all relief vets do that well.
Right.
But just like any other person doing any other job, there's people who do it well and there's people who don't do it well. But so that's what I noticed, and this was pre the relief wave of it becoming very, very popular.
Right, where the perception is since changed from when you first started doing it in terms
Exactly.
of saying
Very
that,
much.
oh, they can't
It's-
keep jobs. I mean, it's up there now, saying, wow, this is for all the reasons you discovered early on.
Yes, and that was what I wanted to do. So there were a few little regional staffing agencies, but there was no national way for relief vets to find work. And because I was doing that kind of cross-country work, and not just working in my own locale, I was like, I need a way to find work in other places. And I would just internet search and then make a list and then call them. But so that was how I started Relief Rover. It was for two reasons. It was to help connect relief vets to jobs nationwide. I basically was building a two-sided marketplace, but it also, and equally as important to me, if not more important, was giving relief vets resources to run their own business. I never wanted to be a staffing agency. I wanted to create a resource to help relief vets, and then we added technicians as well, spin up and run their own businesses. That's it. And not, and I do get that the staffing agency model is great, and there's some really good ones out there.
Right.
But I just wanted to do something different for those who didn't want that kind of model, which was me. I never wanted to work for a staffing agency and never needed to, frankly.
Right. The demand was always there, and it still is
Yeah.
there today.
Yeah.
How long did you run and operate Relief Rover for?
So I launched in July of 2018, and I sold Relief Rover to Hound almost exactly 5 years to the day later. And then I was with Hound as their chief veterinary officer for 2 years.
Got it. Okay. And what are you doing? So you've since left Hound. So what are you doing now?
So now I'm doing relief work. So I'm back to the clinic. Well, and honestly, I did relief work the whole time. I was
Right.
doing maybe...
Never stopped.
I never stopped. I was doing, ER shifts on, maybe 1 or 2 weekends a month. And so now I'm doing the same thing, only some more relief shifts. But also, and then on the veterinary side, so that's what I'm doing on the veterinary side. I'm also on the board of directors of the NAVC.
Yeah, tell me about that. So what does that involve? I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's so fun. I feel so honored to be on that board. It is a volunteer position, so it's not a paid job, but it is, we have 4 board meetings a year, and then we have little intermittent things in between, and we basically help the NAVC with strategy on, being the number one global source of education for the veterinary teams.
Right.
And it's really fun. The team at NAVC is incredible. They're incredible. The board is incredible. The team is incredible. And as a result of being on that board, I am also on the Veterinary Innovation Council board.
Okay.
Which also is really exciting to me and very interesting, because I love vet med, and although, and I know we'll talk about it in a minute, I am working a lot outside of vet med now.
Right.
So I've got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but that
Right.
foot that's in is solidly in, and I love this profession so much, and I love seeing new things that are coming out, and I definitely want to stay involved and help support other entrepreneurs and people that are coming forward to solve problems in our profession.
So you're alluding to it. So yeah, and I love it. I'm glad you mentioned the NAVC. One before we leave that, are you on there for? You're on the board. Is it you have the board members have terms? Is there a 4-year term? Is there a commitment that you got to give the board?
Yeah, there's a 3-year term, and then there's a optional second 3 years if they're happy with you and you're happy with them. So it can be a 6-year term. It can end up being longer if you get on the officer track.
Yeah.
But typically for board members, it's 6 years.
3 to 6 years. Got it.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool. So you're alluding to it. So tell me about Kick It Pajamas. I know you and I have talked about this, and you've kind of talked about how it evolved. So talk to me about it. So you said you got 1 foot in. Where is that one other foot with regard to Kick It Pajamas? How did that start and why?
So this is going to seem really far afield from vet med, and in some ways it is, but in my mind it is very intertwined, because when I said before, right after I graduated, I was diagnosed with advanced cervical cancer. So I was treated with chemo radiation, and I was in the hospital a lot. And a good friend of mine gave me this really cute pair of PJs. And if y'all remember, I was at the time dating this cute guy who is now my husband. But at the time he wasn't. And so, those hospital gowns are gross. They feel gross. They're not comfortable. And I would be in because they did my chemo in the hospital, so I'd be in a week at a time. So the fact that I had my own pajamas and the nurses let me wear them was truly game-changing. Just for my mental health and how I felt going through all of that. But they didn't have the right functionality for the medical staff. But the nurses were sweet. They let me wear them anyway. So I thought to myself at the time, I was like, well, duh, why don't they just make cute PJs that have the right functionality? And so that was where the idea was planted. Fast forward a few years, I'm done with treatments. I'm kind of living my vet life. The idea was just still sitting there. And, I don't know anything about clothes and how to make clothes or, I know nothing. And veterinarians in general are not known to be particularly fashionable. We wear scrubs all day, right? So what do I know about all this stuff? But I really wanted to pursue this idea, so I went to a fashion school in Tampa. I spun up some I didn't go to school as a student.
Right, you're going to observe, you're checking out, right.
Yeah, right. And I worked with some instructors there, and they helped me spin up a prototype. And then I tried for maybe 4 years, 3-4 years, myself, to just solo, bootstrap, get all this sorted out. And I just never could get it off the ground, so it never launched. I threw it in the closet. Fast forward about a decade, a good friend of mine who always loved the idea, and she's a business person, she ended up meeting these 2 women who own a children's clothing company. So now, all of a sudden, we have the right people. We have the right expertise to launch this company. So and it was December of 2020, we launched Kick It Pajamas. We just call it Kick It now because we're so much more than pajamas, but we started at pajamas. And so what we do is we design clothing and accessories for women undergoing cancer treatment and recovery. And we try to take them, from the hospital to recovery at home to the infusion center to back out and working, because your life goes on. Cancer can sometimes be a few month process in your life as far as treatment goes, or it can be years, right? And you can go in and out of treatment. And so sometimes you need functionality in your clothing, but you need to go live your life. So we make our clothing so it doesn't look like medical clothing. It's beautiful, it's comfortable, and it's functional.
Yeah, you're talking about pajamas, and I'm getting chills up my spine because I know my one daughter, she likes these really expensive pajamas, and they're I don't know, almost $200. I said, they're freaking pajamas. What are you talking about? And our boyfriend bought them. I said, I'm glad he bought it because I'm not paying for $200 per job, But but in all seriousness, they all, you want, I know, you want comfortable pajamas, and that's, you're not even, and you're healthy. And then if you're sick and you're got to be in the hospital or something, it just that little bit can cheer you up or make you feel better. Because I know putting on those scrubs that they give to you in a hospital, it's like, it's so uncomfortable, especially if you got to be there for a long time.
So there are things that you don't realize are important until you go through it. So like the softness, like your skin, like chemo and radiation can make your skin really uncomfortable. So having something really soft on your skin that's not pinchy and elasticy. Sometimes, like if for women who've had mastectomies, you might have drains and you need pockets for those drains. You can't lift your arms over your head, so you need front wrap design. So we try to be very thoughtful about all the pieces of the design to,
functionality, comfort, and then what it looks like at the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
Putting it all together.
Yeah, putting it all together, exactly.
Right. So what guidance, you've had 2 successful careers, and it kind of led both by passion. You came out and you found Relief, or maybe Relief found you found Relief, and then, with Kick It, it's just, something, again, an idea, and you were able to create a successful business for it. What advice could you give to other veterinarians who are thinking about or curious about entrepreneurship, but don't really know where to start? I mean, look at you. You had the idea, then you pocketed it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You weren't sure, and then it came back again at the right moment.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes those kinds of things are really timing and luck, but I think it can be a mindset thing. So as a veterinarian, like we all know, there are a lot of challenges in our profession right now, and I actually think it's such a cool time to be in vet med.
Why?
Even though...
What's different?
Because things are changing, and they're changing fast. And it's not just vet med, it's our world, but how vet med is going to absorb all these like technology changes in our world, right? And like pre all the AI hype and all of this stuff, vet med we've been shifting for a while now, right? Like COVID really brought a lot of things to a head with vet med, but we had been shifting before that. And I feel like it is challenging to be a veterinarian, and there is a lot to know. And there's, the relationship with the clients are very different than the relationship with the clients when I started, and very different than the relationship with the clients when my mentors started. So all that's shifting, but it's exciting because if you approach the job and the role with curiosity, it is easy to get frustrated in a lot of things that happen during our day. But approaching things with curiosity and thinking, how could this be better? How could I do this differently? What could be different? Ideas will start to pop up. If you're in a constant state of frustration, it suppresses creativity. If you approach things with curiosity, which admittedly is easier said than done sometimes, depending on how your day is going or how your week is going, or how that job is going. But if you can find those moments of curiosity and train yourself to ask questions when things are going wrong, not necessarily out loud, but in your own head, your creativity will bubble up, and you will start to think of solutions.
Yeah, I love you said approach the curiosity like you did when your friend said, "Hey, what do you think your passion is?" You told her, and she's like, "Why don't you go get a job there?" And you're curious about it, and you went and did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to remember, like, I think there's other two big pieces of advice I would have for anyone really, but for veterinary teams, is that one, just remember everything that's happening in your life. It's always hard to feel this way when you're in it and it's stressful, but everything that's happening is a learning experience. And you're going to be able to take something from that, time in your life or that time in your work life, and you don't know yet what the lessons are, but they will bubble up later.
Right.
So it's a journey, and if you can remember that it's a journey, and remember like, oh, I'm going through this tough time, but there's going to be good things that come out of this. Just have faith in that.
Yeah.
It makes it easier. And then the other thing is build community. You don't have to like be alone. And I never could have done any of these entrepreneurial things without a whole world of people who reached out to help me. You included, right? Like you were you were part of that network of people that I think I met you at that first Vet Partners that I was at, where I launched Relief Rover.
Right.
And so don't be afraid to talk to people. You may get some blow-offs or some no's, but don't worry, you will get a lot more yeses, and you will get a lot more people who will support you. So just talk to people. Don't be shy.
You sound like our chairman, who's 86. His dad started our firm. His name is Barry Mandelbaum. I was just with him. Still here. He's great, and it's I'm so happy to have the time to spend with him. And he's like, Pete, he told me years ago, we are in the people business.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? The people we really are. You got to pick up the phone, call somebody, go meet them for lunch, go have dinner, meet people. You sit behind. It's so easy. Like in our world, you get an assignment, you sit behind a closed door and just do your work all day long. And there's so much more to probably every profession, as opposed to to establishing those relationships, talking with people. I try to instill that in my kids, and then just talk with them. And it's funny you said something. Even if you're not in a good situation, you learn about it. My daughter 2 years ago had this really crummy internship. She's like, Dad, I hate this. I said, that's good though. Check the box. You don't want to do that. So that's okay. That's why you'll learn. I go, suck it up, finish it out throughout the summer. But in the back of your mind, you figured it out, at 19 years old, as opposed to 26 years old or you're 30, you figured it out. So you take that little nugget of, experience and you move on, right?
Yes. And I always, taking it to Relief, I always tell people, say yes a lot to relief work, even if you're not sure about the clinic, because in the beginning, and then get choosier later, because you'll learn what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't work. And if you don't know, just say yes to things. They're typically short-term commitments.
I think you just answered my question. I was going to ask you, going back to Relief, like, what's one thing you wish every veterinarian knew about relief work as a career option? That's something I guess you would tell them in terms of be open, be flexible.
Yes, I would say so. If you are a veterinarian considering relief work, I would say, one, you do need to have sort of a flexible nature. And if you don't, if you like things very just so, that's not a bad quality to have. You just might not like relief work.
Right.
Because you do have to be flexible. And I will say also that flexibility is, I think, both sort of a character trait, but also something that can be learned. And you'll have to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable in different situations. And again, I feel that is a skill that can be learned, and it actually can serve you in all parts of your life.
Right.
If you are a practice considering hiring a relief vet, what I would say is meet the relief vet. And it blows my mind how few times I've been asked to be interviewed for, just basically like, you're a vet, just come work for me. Invite them in. I know it takes time, but invite them in, meet them, let them meet your team, show them the place. You're going to have a better relationship in the long term, and and you may be able to avoid some problems. We are not Uber drivers. We are individual people that bring different skill sets to the table. And it's really important. You're turning your business over to this person. Know who they are.
Right. That's great advice. So what's next for you? What's next for Dr. Cindy Trice in the future?
So I don't know exactly. I love being in this phase of a little bit of transition. It's super fun, always a fun time for me because I feel like I'm seeing how it's going to unfold. So I'm digging in hard on Kick It. I'm doing a lot of work with that. On the veterinary side, I feel like there's some general topics that I'm super interested in diving into, and some of that is I am really interested in AI in veterinary medicine and how that's going to be used. I just got done taking a course on AI in human med, like a certificate course. So I just wanted to see like how is that being applied in human med. So
Was that something you were able to take online? You can do that?
Yeah.
That's great. Right.
It was a certificate course. It was really good. And then also like human-animal bond stuff, just like digging a little bit more into that. I'm training a dog I have to be a therapy dog, and I don't know, just figuring out how this all crosses over between supporting cancer patients, being a veterinarian. We'll see. I don't know how it's going to unfold.
Well, it makes sense because you've been so flexible and creative your whole career. You're going to just continue to do it and figure whatever comes, you'll figure it out. That's good. How do our listeners connect with you? Get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you, relief work, Kick It. Well, how do they reach out?
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about Kick It, it's kickitpajamas.com, like KICKIT pajamas.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, is probably the easiest way. So I'm just Cindy Trice. If you search me, you'll find me on LinkedIn. And I have like 8,000 email addresses, like depending on the project. So I won't.
Yeah.
It would have to be like it would be like the credits scrolling at the end, and here's her Kick It email, and here's her veterinary email.
We'll be sure to put the links to when we post this so people can find it. We'll do that. So that's great. Well, Cindy, thanks for joining me today. It's going to wrap up our conversation. It's good to see you. Always love having our conversations. And, again, you'll learn something new about somebody. And we've known each other for years. And then it was a great story. And I just, it's really enjoyed listening to you talk about, your experiences in your career. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Okay, I'll see everybody next time.